30 teams, 30 first basemen. Let's rank them using statistics. Starting off at number 30 is Jake Bauers for the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers look to continue their quest to make the worst offense possible to go with this great pitching staff. They are off to a great start with Jake Bauers being their projected first baseman. He did strike out nearly 35% of the time last season, which is obviously not ideal. He did get consistent solid contact when he didn't swing and miss though, as he had a pretty high barrel rate. A barrel is considered to be any ball hit at least 98 miles per hour with a launch angle between 26 and 30 degrees. Those balls often go for home runs, doubles, extra base hits. Those are kind of the balls that you want to be hitting, and you hear me reference this stat throughout the video because it's a good indicator on how good of a hitter you are. He's never had a season with a WRC plus over 100, and entering his 28-year-old season, there's no reason I can expect that to change. Next up at 29 is Joey Meneses of the Washington Nationals. Now, a lot of people will remember Meneses in 2022 when he put up a 157 WRC plus in 56 games. The problem is, if you look at his underlying stats, a lot of regression was expected. His WOBA was over 60 points higher than his expected WOBA, which means he was doing a lot better than he was expected to based on the quality of contact that he was making. You will hear me reference these two stats also a lot throughout this video, and their main purpose is to look how lucky a hitter was. If a hitter's WOBA is significantly higher than his expected WOBA, that means there is probably some luck involved, and you can expect some regression if that hitter continues to make the same type of contact. If their WOBA is lower than their expected WOBA, you can expect the opposite to happen if they make the same type of contact. The numbers here suggested that Meneses was going to regress a lot, and he did. He was a below average hitter last year, and that's not going to cut it at the first base position. At 28 is the 2020 AL MVP, Jose Abreu from the Houston Astros. Not quite the MVP anymore as he sits down here at 28. After 9 straight seasons of above average offensive production, his offense fell off a cliff with a WRC plus of 86. The underlying numbers also don't look good. His average exit velocity went all the way from the 93rd percentile to the 42nd percentile. Heading into his age 37 season, that is expected, and he most likely won't be getting that elite exit velocity back anytime soon. And if this offense is going to stay like this, he will not be a great first baseman. Coming in at 27 is Jake Cronenworth for the San Diego Padres. Cronenworth isn't your typical first baseman at 6 foot flat, 187 pounds, and first base is not his ideal position. He was much more valuable as a second baseman that could play good defense. He hits for very little power with a 12th percentile barrel rate and 16th percentile exit velocity. This seems like a good spot to explain why defense doesn't matter at first base. I did put FRV or fielding run value as a stat in the graphics, but most of the time, first baseman, that doesn't mean much. They don't get the volume of plays that shortstop does, second base does, even third base does, and when they do get the ball, they don't need to use their arm. Most of you probably already knew this, but first base is the least valuable defensive position, which this ranking will reflect. If you do play good defense at first, it's kind of a bonus, but if you play bad defense at first, that's not going to hurt you as much as if you play bad defense at catcher, which you should know all about if you watch my catcher ranking. That being said, Cronenworth was a solid, athletic, above-average defensive second baseman, but now, at first, he doesn't really get to show that off anymore. At number 26 is Kris Bryant for the Colorado Rockies. Unlike Cronenworth, the move to first base could be very advantageous for Bryant. In the outfield last season, he was not great, as you can see in the F-WAR. A big reason behind it being that low is that the defense in the outfield combined with the 73 WRC+. Obviously, injuries are playing a big role here, as we haven't seen Bryant play a full season since 2021, which he was pretty good in. He's going to be 32. There is a world where he's much better than this ranking, but I have a hard time taking him over the rest of these guys just based on the amount of games that he has played recently. At 25 is Rowdy Tellez from the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you look at his stats from last year, it's not looking too good. I think this is a case where a bounce back year is in the cards because if you look back at the 2022 season, he had much better numbers, highlighted by his 88th percentile barrel rate and 110 WRC+. He only played in 106 games in 2023. The barrel rate was down. The WRC+ was obviously down. He's only going to be 29, so a bounce back year is definitely not out of the question. But you can't go too high with him, just based on the numbers he put up last year. At 24 is Andrew Vaughn of the Chicago White Sox. Oh, Andy Vaughn, what are we going to do with you? He was the 3rd overall pick, graduated as the 13th best prospect in the league according to Fangraphs, and he's kind of just sitting here. 2023 was supposed to be the year of Andrew Vaughn. He was going to be the everyday first baseman with Abreu gone. He doesn't have to worry about playing 5 different positions, playing left field, playing right field. He's going to get the same spot every day. It will definitely help him get into that groove at the plate. Sounds logical, right? Well, no. He only got worse. WRC+ lower, barrel rate lower, exit velocities lower, strikeout rate higher. things are going in the wrong direction here, Andrew. He's going to be 26. He'll be the everyday first baseman for another year. It's almost time to give up, but not yet. He's number 24. At 23 is Michael Busch, the newly acquired first baseman for the Chicago Cubs. It may seem a little high, but you gotta look at the upside. He's only played 27 games in the majors, but little did you know, he's actually older than Andrew Vaughn, which is kinda crazy to think about. He's currently the number 29 prospect on Fangraphs, which means obviously he has the upside. Looking at his numbers in AAA last year, it's pretty easy to see. In 98 games, he put up a 150 WRC plus with a 14% walk rate to go along with it. You can see his major league numbers at the bottom there. They are awful, but it was a small sample size. A handful of those games were pinch hits or in-game substitutions where he only got 1 or 2 plate appearances. Will the minor league numbers translate to the majors? There is a chance, and I think I would rather take this chance than run it back with Andrew Vaughn. Another minor league guy coming in here at 22, and it's Kyle Manzardo for the Cleveland Guardians. Fangraphs has him as the projected starter. They have Josh Naylor playing DH for anyone thinking of him. He is the 28th best prospect according to Fangraphs, so one spot ahead of Busch. The Guardians got him in a Savali trade midseason last year. He's got potential to be pretty good. He has a career .926 OPS in the minors. He walks a lot, doesn't really strike out too much. He hasn't really shown the power that Michael Busch has, but I think he's the more pro-ready hitter, even though he's only 23 years old. He has a consistent approach at the plate, and I think he has a pretty good chance to make a name for himself here in his rookie year. At number 21, this might seem low, but it's Jeimer Candelario for the Cincinnati Reds. You might be saying, this guy was one of the more valuable guys at the trade deadline last year. He put up a 3.3 WAR. He has to be pretty good, right? Part of that value that he had last year was playing good defense at third base, which he won't be doing anymore because he's playing first base. The offensive numbers aren't as straightforward though. He did produce well last year with a 117 WRC+, but the underlying numbers are not as appealing to me. A 44th percentile barrel rate, 29th percentile exit velocity, and 37th percentile expected WOBA suggest that the 117 WRC+ won't sustain itself. He overperformed his expected WOBA last year by a pretty large margin, which we talked about before. All of this leads me to believe that he will suffer some regression in 2024. Plus, Candelario doesn't exactly have a great track record when it comes to hitting either. Personally, I don't like this 3-year, $45 million deal that the Reds gave him, but I'm not a GM, so who am I to talk? Getting into the top 20 at number 20 is Alex Kirilloff for the Minnesota Twins. He's entering that Andrew Vaughn territory where he was a top prospect, and now he's going to be 26. We haven't seen him play a full season yet, though, so there is still some hope for the future. He had a 55th percentile expected WOBA last year to go along with his great production, so he was expected to be an above-average hitter as well. The barrel rate and exit velocity are both below 50th percentile, so that's not ideal, but I think there is still some hope for Kirilloff if he gets a full season under his belt in 2024. At 19 is Ryan O'Hearn for the Baltimore Orioles. He kind of had a breakout season last year at age 29. In a pretty sizable sample, he put up a great WRC+, and the underlying numbers were also good. Average exit velocity of 91.9 miles per hour, which is in the 89th percentile. That is great. We've always known he was a good power hitter though. Now, the walk rate is very low, which is not ideal, but he started to make more consistent contact last year as he saw an improvement in both strikeout rate and hard hit percentage. He could have a solid back half of his career if he keeps this up. At 18, we have a guy that's going in the other direction, and that is Anthony Rizzo. Last year was a weird year for Rizzo. He had that undiagnosed concussion. He was playing through that, then he missed a lot of time. These numbers from last year, you can't really look too much into them, but we have them here. The strikeout rate for Rizzo was the highest of his career by a large margin, but was that just because of the injuries? There's no real way to 100% tell. He has yet to have a season below 100 WRC+. Do I think that will end in 2024? No, but I don't think he will be that middle-of-the-order type hitter that he once was. At 17 is Ty France from the Seattle Mariners. He had a down season last year, obviously, but I don't think it's the end of the world. The underlying data suggests that he did get unlucky. His WOBA was significantly lower than his expected WOBA. When you're a contact hitter like France is, that unluckiness is going to hurt you a lot more than if you're a power hitter. I think a bounce-back year is definitely possible for the Mariners' first baseman. Coming in at number 16 is Josh Bell for the Miami Marlins. It was a tale of two halves for Josh last year. In the second half of the season, he had a 114 WRC+. Of course, he was traded at the deadline. Once he got to the Marlins, he put up better numbers. He always had good discipline at the plate, indicated by his walk numbers, and I expect that to continue going into his age 31 season. The power's still there. He had a 64th percentile barrel rate last year, along with a 72nd percentile expected WOBA. I could easily see him in the 110 to 120 WRC+ range in 2024, and I think he'll be a middle-of-the-road first baseman. At number 15 might be surprising, it's Ryan Nota of the Oakland Athletics. To me, he's the best hitter on this team. There's not much competition, but he is probably the best hitter. If you were to, in a lab, make a modern 3 true outcome hitter in Major League Baseball, it would be Ryan Nota. He has a 98th percentile walk rate, a 2nd percentile K rate, and an 85th percentile barrel rate. He doesn't make contact often, but when he does, it's often hard and it's often a line drive. And to go along with that, he is one of the best eyes in the league, which I am obviously a huge fan of. He made up for his .229 batting average in 2023 with a robust .364 on base percentage, which is what really matters. If he starts to make more consistent contact, he could easily be a top 10 first baseman in the league, but that's a big if. For now, he's coming in here at number 15. At number 14 is a guy who was just drafted last season, and that is Nolan Schanuel from the Los Angeles Angels. He's only played 22 games in the minors, 29 games in the majors, and he's already the 14th best player at his position in the league? I like to think so. Let's start off with the good. He's one of the few hitters in the league to walk more than he strikes out. He did it last year in the minors and majors, and it could happen again this year over a full season. There were 4 hitters to do that last season, and those 4 were Alex Bregman, Luis Arraez, Juan Soto, and Jose Ramirez. That's some pretty good company. Can Schanuel do it over a full season? I'd like to think so. He profiles a lot like Luis Arraez, lefty, makes a lot of contact, a lot of line drives. He's not going to hit home runs, which is his biggest negative, but with the on-base numbers he can put up, he can be pretty scary. He's only going to be 22 years old, so plenty of room and plenty of time for improvement. At number 13 is Lamont Way Jr. for the San Francisco Giants. Last year, he did platoon a little with Wilmer Flores, but don't get it twisted. He's still an above-average hitter against lefties with a 101 WRC+, which means he could play every day. He's another guy who walks a lot, doesn't strike out as much. Last season, he put up an 86th percentile expected WOBA, meaning he was expected to be a pretty good hitter. He's only 30 years old, so I don't see much regression coming his way. I think he will have another solid season in 2024. Number 12 is Vinnie Pestano for the Kansas City Royals. He was injured for a bulk of the 2023 season, so these numbers aren't going to be the best representation of what kind of player Vinnie is. He doesn't strike out at all, he has one of the lowest K rates in the league, and he has an above average walk rate to go along with it. He also hits for pretty good power, which is uncommon for a guy who strikes out as little as he does. Last year, his exit velocity was down a little, but in 2022, he had it up at 91.2 on average, which is very high. If he can stay healthy in 2024 and we see a full season from him, he could put up some very interesting numbers at the plate. Number 11 is World Series champion Nathaniel Lowe from the Texas Rangers. His WRC plus of 114 was down from his 141 that he posted in 2022, but in 2022, the WOBA number suggested that he got some luck to go his way. He's another guy with a great walk rate, as he posted a 90th percentile walk rate last season. He's not going to hit for much power with a 30th percentile barrel rate, but he makes consistent contact, gets on base at a high rate. This makes him a pretty reliable option at the first base position. Getting into the top 10 at number 10 is Spencer Torkelson of the Detroit Tigers. You might say, why is he so high? Well, it's for a couple reasons. His rookie year in 2022 was awful, but in 2023, he put up a decent season at the plate. He hits the ball hard consistently with an 89th percentile barrel rate and 87th percentile average exit velocity. He does strike out at a 25% clip, which is not the best, but it's not insanely awful either. He has good discipline with a 67th percentile walk rate. He was drafted number 1 overall for a reason. He's only going to be 24 years old. I think the breakout season for Spencer Torkelson is finally coming in 2024. At number 9 is Christian Walker for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ever since Paul Goldschmidt left Arizona, Walker has filled out that hole quite nicely. He put up a 4.2 WAR in 2022 and a 3.8 WAR in 2023. Offensively, he's a solid all-around hitter, takes his walks, doesn't strike out a concerning amount, and has a good barrel rate in the 75th percentile. He also is the best defensive first baseman in the league, which is not the most important thing in the world, but as I said earlier, it's a nice bonus that he brings along. Christian Walker, solid all around defensively and offensively, number 9 at the first base position. Number 8 is Pete Alonso from the New York Mets. A little concerning in 2023 that we saw an exit velocity drop from Alonso as he was in the 55th percentile in average exit velocity. Still didn't stop him from hitting too many home runs as he hit 46 of them. The barrel rate was still great in the 91st percentile. The WOBA does say he was unlucky as it was 22 points lower than his expected WOBA. There is some good there, but there is also some bad. The exit velocity drop is slightly concerning, but I think he will be fine if he keeps that barrel rate up in the 90th percentile. If that number begins to drop, then it would be time to start panicking, as that is the one thing that Alonso is known for, barreling up the baseball. Number 7 is the Rookie of the Year third place finisher in the AL, Tristan Pompey. It took him a while to get going in his rookie year, but in the second half of the season, he was quite literally one of the best hitters in the league. He put up a 175 WRC plus in the second half, which is pretty good if you don't know. He has great plate discipline, he walks a lot, he hits the ball hard, he does strike out a lot, but that's not the end of the world if you take walks at the rate that he does and hit the ball as hard as he does. He put up an 86th percentile barrel rate. He's only going to be 24 years old. I think he will just continue to get better as he ages into the prime years of his career. Number 6 is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. 2021 seems so long ago. Vladdy was crushing baseballs. He was in the running for the MVP, and now we got people saying that he's bad. It's a sad world that we live in. Is he really that bad though? No, he's not. The underlying numbers he put up in 2023 are some of the best in the league. Just take a look at his baseball savant page. Exit velocity, good. Barrel rate, good. Expected WOBA, elite. Expected batting average, elite. Expected slugging percentage, elite. Strikeout rate, elite. Everything kind of says that he should have been an elite hitter last season, but obviously the production wasn't quite there. In 2022, people pointed to a launch angle problem as his launch angle went all the way down to 4.3 degrees compared to 9.4 in his 2021 season. This means he was hitting a lot more ground balls, which obviously isn't good for a power hitter like Vladdy. In 2023 though, he had it up at 10.5 degrees, which means he should have been back to hitting home runs and not ground balls. I might be biased because I want Vladdy to be good, but it's kind of hard to disagree with these numbers. I think he will have a great season in 2024. Number 5 is Paul Goldschmidt for the St. Louis Cardinals. Not the best season for Goldie last year, but the underlying numbers still were pretty good. It is Paul Goldschmidt. It's kind of hard not to put him in the top 5. I don't really have anything else to say about him other than he got a little unlucky last year. He's getting older, so the decline will come eventually. He's still good for now though, as there's nothing really pointing to a harsh regression in his underlying numbers. Number 4 is Yandy Diaz. The Rays have done it again. This guy comes into the organization with a trade, and now he's just one of the best players in the league. Walks a lot, doesn't strike out at all, and hits the ball hard with a 98th percentile exit velocity, 93.4 miles per hour. The only issue he has is that he hits maybe too many ground balls, so the home run numbers aren't quite there, but he still was one of the best hitters in the league last year. He will be 32 this year. Not much regression is expected. As we get into the top 3, these are pretty clear in my eyes. Now, the order you may argue a little bit, but these are the clear top 3. At number 3 is Matt Olson for the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, Oakland, how's Christian Pache and Shea Longlears doing for you? Yep, that trade worked out pretty well, didn't it? You can hate all you want on John Fisher, and you should, as he's one of the worst owners in sports, but the GM ain't doing the team any favors with this trade. Even at the time of this trade, I thought it was awful, and guess what? The Sean Murphy trade was even worse. I'm getting off topic. I'm starting a rant. I'm sorry. Matt Olson is good though. Do I need to explain? He's in the 95th percentile or greater in expected WOBA, expected slugging, exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit rate, and walk rate. The one thing keeping him from being number 2 is that this is kind of his first elite hitting season, and the guy at number 2 has quite the track record. Number 2 is Bryce Harper, of course, representing the Phillies, 170 WRC plus in 2021, 139 in 2022, and 142 in 2023. You don't see many guys putting up these numbers consistently. Obviously, him moving to first base hurts his value amongst other players, but when you're comparing him to other first basemen, there's only one other one that I'd rather have, and that is Freddie Freeman, number 1 for the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's kind of hard not to pick the guy that has only one season under a 300 batting average in the last 8 years. Oh, and he also hits for pretty good power too. He hit 29 home runs in 2023, 163 WRC plus. He's expected to be one of the best hitters in the league year in and year out. He's the best base runner at the first base position, and it isn't really close. He also plays good defense, just a couple of bonuses added on to that elite bat. Now, he is going to be 34 this year, and it's going to have to come to an end eventually, but for now, he shows no signs of slowing down. Here's the full ranking. You can pause the video if you want to review. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you want to see any more rankings. I'll do more because I like making them. Goodbye.